Greetings and welcome to Caring for Seniors. I'm your host, Adrienne Houghton, and each week I sit down with Dave Stieglitz, who is the president of Oasis Senior Advisors Jacksonville, to discuss all aspects of senior living, from elder care, financial planning, through to housing and everything in between. And today is no exception, and we're delighted to be able to talk about physical therapy. And joining us today is Sara DeMars, who is the founder of Neuro PT. Welcome, Sara. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Adrienne. Good to have you.
It's good to see you. So let's clear up one thing, which is something that I think a lot of people are confused about: the difference between physical therapy and occupational therapy.
Yes, there is some overlap between the two professions. As a physical therapist, I do focus more on someone's mobility, their walking, and their balance.
And occupational therapy?
I would say occupational therapists tend to focus on what they call activities of daily living. So what you have to do on a day-to-day basis to function, such as combing your hair, brushing your teeth, getting dressed, activities like that.
Oh, okay. So that does help a lot. It certainly does.
So how did you get into Neuro PT? What led you to start this?
Sure. Well, I've been a physical therapist for over 10 years. I've always worked for larger corporations and hospital systems. I really loved being a physical therapist. However, I did find there were some constraints with patient care. There seemed to be some gaps where people weren't getting the full rehab that they needed. So that's what led me to start Neuro PT, where I can fill in those gaps and also focus on the neurologic population.
And what's your therapy and philosophy of focus?
I like to focus on quality of movement. So instead of doing an activity 100 times anyway, I want my clients to focus on the best movement patterns. Then if they practice the movement patterns enough, eventually they become more habitual and can have long-term change at that point.
Awesome. So people with debilitating diseases that seem to be on a pathward down, we talked about that a little bit. Tell us how you help them and maybe turn some things around for them.
Sure. I see a variety of neurologic conditions such as Parkinson's disease, people who've had strokes. These people can get better. I think there may be a myth that if someone has a disease that's chronic, that they're not going to improve. However, with targeted balance training and targeted therapy, a lot of people do get better.
And I mean, in general, how often do you see your clients?
Well, it depends on the reason they're coming to me. I do see a factor of people with vertigo. So people with vertigo, I tend to see about 3 to 5 sessions. And then someone who's seen me for a mobility concern, it does take some time to have that consistency and long-term change that I talked about. So I would say on average of 12 sessions for a mobility concern.
And is that once a week? Is it once a month? Is it twice a week? I mean, does it depend on the actual condition, or is it?
There is some variance. I do generally recommend to start with 3 times a week to really hone in on what I'm teaching somebody. And then as they improve, I can back off at that point, drop down to 2 times a week, then to 1 times a week. And at that point, my goal is for someone to learn a home program so they can manage their care on their own. And some people do like that directed coaching and that accountability, and then I can continue to see somebody for wellness at that point too.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
You mentioned them coming to you, but you actually see them where they live.
I do actually
correct?
go to them. Yes, I see people in their home, whether that's a freestanding home or if they're in a community setting. But I do see them in their home, which is of course convenient for my clients, but also helpful to me to be able to see exactly what they need to do in their own environment and what their challenges are in their home.
If you don't really have a major problem, is there a way that seniors can improve their function, their mobility, their agility, their balance?
Yeah, well, being active is, of course, priority number one.
Right.
And finding an activity that they really enjoy doing so that it's not a chore to exercise, but exercise can be gardening, it can be going for a walk with your family. There's plenty of activities that a senior can do that will improve their balance and their athletic ability.
Yes.
A lot of the seniors that you and I interact with suffer from neuropathy, and that can be very debilitating. Talk about what you can do, how you can help neuropathy people.
Yeah, well, you've probably seen an older adult and they're walking and they're staring down at the floor. Maybe you're wondering, why are they looking down? I tell them to look up. Well, part of the reason could be neuropathy. So they don't have that sensation, that full sensation in their feet. And I'm not just talking about the sensation of touch, but actually the sensation of knowing where their feet are in space. So they're having to look down to see where their feet are. And I can have a targeted training program. I might not directly work on the neuropathy, but I work on the balance system as a whole so that people can function looking up and exploring the world around them.
And so overall, which conditions do you treat?
There's a large variety. I've mentioned a few: Parkinson's disease, stroke. I also see people with dementia. I do see people with vertigo from an inner ear disorder. And then generally people who have balance dysfunction. They might not have a known neurologic condition, but they are either having falls or fearful of falling. And that's when I like to get in there and diagnose their balance issue. How can I provide training on the specific reason that they're falling? And I find that has the most success. But I don't just give everybody the same exercises, but I truly find, what does this particular person need?
So you become a detective.
I do. It's a fun part of my job.
That must be quite fascinating, actually, because everybody you see is going to be totally different.
Yes,
you
that's right.
You don't have any one patient that's exactly the same, even though they may have similar symptoms.
That is very true. Yes, it keeps it really engaging for me. I can use my brain. I can also help people. So I love what I do.
Wonderful.
That's awesome. And I think we talked also about now Medicare, unfortunately, does not pay for this. This is a private pay situation, correct?
For someone with Medicare, I am looking more on the wellness side of things. So they've had their insurance-based therapy. They understand what that is. They also maybe understand some of the limitations that come with it. So I'm looking to provide a different route of care. It allows actually me to have more potential clients. I will see some individuals that are maybe having a home care agency provide care, but maybe the physical therapist is only coming once a week, or maybe they're not getting any physical therapy through them. So it does allow me to help people that wouldn't otherwise be able to get the full therapy that they need to actually make a change.
And what do you think the biggest challenge for you as a neurological physical therapist is?
I guess explaining how I'm different than traditional therapy, and that it's not a one, everyone gets the same treatment, that I do really need to get to know the person. They need to get to know me too, so that they trust me, and then I can make a targeted training program for them and get them back to doing those activities that they used to do and they want to resume again.
Yes.
What's your typical length of relationship with your clients? Do you have clients that you are working with periodically over a long period of time, or do you come in, you fix them, and then they're done, they don't see you again?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Both, which
Yeah.
is so great to have this flexibility. That's a reason why I started my own business, to have that flexibility. And I always want to keep in contact with my clients. It's really important to me because anything can change, and I like to develop those long-term relationships, and that if something comes up, they can call me, and I can either walk them through something on the phone, or we can resume therapy. And then I have clients that I've seen for months, and they're doing well, they're improving, but they can't just go to a gym. They can't just have a personal trainer come work with them. They do need the more individualized care that I provide.
And can you give us an example, perhaps, of one of your biggest success stories?
Sure. I mean, I've had a client that when I first worked with her, she could hardly get up out of her chair. She was very fearful when she would stand up, reaching out for different furniture and objects to move around to her condo. And now actually she can leave her condo by herself. She can go down the elevator. She can walk outside around to her unit. She can go sit by the community pool. She's just living her life again. And that's so awesome for me to see.
That's wonderful.
Great.
Yes.
That's great. Yeah.
Is there one thing or maybe are there tips that you'd like to tell the viewers that, you know, this is what you should be paying attention to? Or you know, if you have these symptoms, you can call me.
Yeah, well, I would say that, you know, falling can be avoidable with the right training. So if you're falling, you know, seek help. You can, you know, go to your physician. You can also, you know, call me at Neuro PT. You know, you can do something about it. You can enact a change. And then also with people that experience vertigo, which is essentially a dizziness feeling, typically that's from an inner ear disorder. And if it is from an inner ear disorder, it is treatable. So I want people to know that, but they don't have to suffer with that, because that can be really debilitating.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've known people who've had it, and they feel that they can't go out, they don't want to go anywhere, and so knowing that there's somebody that could perhaps help them to get over the symptoms, because is it curable, or?
Well, it depends what the issue is. Some are curable and some are more long-term, but you can manage the symptoms. And then, yeah, and like you said, people don't want to go out. It's not even safe to drive, really, when you're in that flare-up. So that's why I like to go directly to them and take care of their issue.
How many people do you find with the residential homes that when you're setting up their housing situation, that they also need to be set up with therapy and things like that?
Yes, I mean, fall risks are high percentage of the people I deal with. People with fall risk, people with neuropathy, as I mentioned before. I hear a lot of that. It's because it's very debilitating. Arthritis, things that affect movement. There's a lot of Parkinson's out there. So a lot of these things that Sara addresses and can help with, you know, it's a big help for my clients.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And so if people want to get hold of you, how do they find you?
Well, they can go to my website, which is Neuro, Neuro, goals, like a soccer goal, neurogoals.com.
As simple as that.
As long as you can spell neuro.
I know. Yeah. Make sure it's Neuro. Yeah. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and it's wonderful to find out that there is a solution. People don't have to suffer in silence, that they can perhaps reach out. So thank you for coming in. It's always a pleasure to see you, David, too.
Always.
And don't forget, if there's any more information that you would like to know about Sara DeMars or Oasis Senior Advisors, you can always contact us on iwannabuzz.com.